Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. Today I'm reviewing a classic film from 1937, Lost Horizon. This was based upon the James Hilton novel and was directed by Frank Capra and stars Roland Coleman, Jane Wyatt, Edward Everett Horton, Thomas Mitchell, Margot and Isabella Jewell. The film really focuses on British diplomat Robert Conway, who is ultimately trying to escape a war-torn Tibet. Him, including 4 other strangers, escape Tibet on a plane. While they're travelling along, they end up somewhere they don't expect. They crash land in the Himalayas and are ultimately rescued by the people of the mysterious Eden-like valley of Shangri-La, protected from the mountains, from the world outside, where the clouds of World War II are gathering. Shangri-La provides a seductive escape of world war-weary Conway. This is a really great film. This is one of Capra's best. I think Frank Capra was and still is one of the best filmmakers. He had a lot of heart to his films. He was telling a lot of interesting stories, and the way he sort of told them with very colourful and unique characters, and characters who have to make decisions or overcome something in order to be where they want to be. I'm a fan of his other films such as Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, It's a Wonderful Life, You Can't Take It With You in This. There's always a great emphasis on characters. A person who's struggling with something or coming to terms with something or going through something, some sort of spiritual crisis, you might say. And the film really shows how that person, comes about making the decision of who they are or who they want to be and their understanding the world they inhabit. I think really talks about human beings and the spiritual crisis that we do face sometimes, and trying to find our place and purpose in the world is sometimes really difficult, and that's what these films should look at. And Capra's really great at conveying that and capturing that on screen. As the disclaimer says at the start of the film, this film was shortened down. There's lost reels, this audio track that they've found on the missing parts, but it was never a real complete film until in recent years. And they've taken the audio track and put it in photos of these particular characters and actors performing this. So it conveys what we need to know for that particular scene without actually seeing footage of them. I think it's really clever that way. There is footage in this that is dated and that looks kind of bad and poor quality, and there's other stuff that's really great. And it's really good that they're able to tie all this together, put all these missing pieces back into the film and make it to where Frank Capra had it originally. It's sad that there's reels missing from this, because these scenes sort of take you out of the film a little bit because you're just focusing on pictures and hearing someone talk. But I'm glad that they're in there and we get to see the whole pictures as it was originally intended. There's a lot to really like about this film. I felt a real connection to the story. That idea of not knowing your place sometimes in the world and having a spiritual crisis and coming to a realization about something. There was something about that I honed into. In many ways it reminded me of Razor's Edge. That really encapsulated a spiritual journey, so to speak, and this sort of has that as well. And what I like most about it is you've got these different strangers on this plane who, ultimately crash lands and they end up in Shangri-La. And it's interesting to see how definitive the characters are and how different they are, and how some of them come to a realization about things and are happy to stay at Shangri-La, and others aren't. They want to return to the life they previously had. In many ways, this film feels like the idea that they're in Shangri-La now. The life they had previous doesn't exist anymore. But they keep trying to get back to that. They can't let go and accept the present moment and what they're going through. And the life in Shangri-La is the new life. It's opening their eyes in their world in an interesting way that they can feel happy and less stressed and less worried about things because their life is so simple. I think all the performances are really fantastic. I think Roland Coleman as Robert Conway is really great. Very English man, very stiff upper lip, but you sort of feel for him and you can see how smart he is and how he's struggled with many things, and he's felt very empty most of his life until this moment, until he finds Shangri-La randomly, that he starts to question existence and starts to question his life and starts to get a lot out of being there that he didn't have before, and a sense of peace inside of him. And that was really fascinating as well. Jane Wyatt's an interesting character. She plays a character who's there at Shangri-La and seems young, but is much older than she looks. And it's really about the connection between her and Roland Coleman's character That's really the heart of the film. That she wanted him to come there, that she'd read his books. He'd written a lot of books and she'd read them all. Felt at the heart of it, she found a man that was unhappy, a man that was sort of empty inside. And she felt that if she could get him there to Shangri-La, he could really open up and find his purpose. And she's a real driving force from that. I love their relationship in a lot of ways. It's old traditional romance. It's sort of the old traditional sort of courting of two people. I really like that. I like the fact that when you first meet Jane Wyatt's character, Sandra, he never really gets to talk to her. He just keeps seeing her and they keep telling you'll meet her when you need to. And he just keeps seeing her from far off. And they always share a smile or a wave or a look to each other. And it isn't until later in the film that they start to converse and interact, and then you start to see this romance forming between these two people. And I thought that was really great. It was sort of refreshing, unique. It's a different time back then. Courting of people is non-existent now like it used to be. And there's just something really refreshing about that, even though this is sort of old traditional sort of thing. I guess it's refreshing in these times, I guess. All the other actors in it do a fantastic job. And each are definitive characters. You've got a character, Thomas Mitchell, who plays Bernard. He's sort of this man we don't know a lot about, but we learn throughout the film, and he has his moment where he reveals who he is. That he's on the run from the police, that he is kind of a criminal, and he is focused on himself, and he's all about money and what he can take for himself. And his character has a great evolution when he gets to Shangri-La. Finds the way to set up water from place to place within Shangri-La, and he gives himself purpose. He finds himself happy, and he's not focused on gold and money. He is at the beginning because he finds all this gold, but he starts to lose focus of that, and he starts to forget about it and starts to focus on what he can do to add to the community that's been coexisting in Shangri-La for so long. And he's such an interesting character and well-defined. Edward Everett Horton's character, love it. He's sort of this he was a school teacher, and he's sort of very quiet and timid, and he doesn't want to say anything wrong, and he's sort of the character that complains a lot. You always got to have that one character with his group of people in this sort of film where he complains a lot. Even when he gets to Shangri-La, he's sort of whining and complaining, but then he finds purpose in being able to use the skills he's learnt to be a teacher and teach the kids that reside within Shangri-La. And that gives him purpose as well. I think both these guys do a really fantastic job, and their interaction with each other is really great, and the evolution of their characters is really interesting. Isabella Jewell's another really great actress in this, and gives a great, fantastic performance as Gloria. This young woman who we find out is ultimately dying. They only give her 6 months to live, and it's a year after that. And she feels like she's living on borrowed time. But when she gets to Shangri-La, it's like she starts to feel better. She starts to feel like herself again and starts to feel well again. They don't really do a lot with her character, but I just thought the moments that she had in the evolution of that sort of character from a cynical person to a well-adjusted, happier person, I thought that was kind of interestingly done in a small way. Overall, it's just a really well put together film, and it's a really captivating story. You really feel for these characters and what they're going through, and you start to see the changes in them. The longer they stay at Shangri-La, the better they become, the more freer, the happier they become inside. There is one character in the film, played by John Howard, he ultimately plays George Conway, Robert Conway's brother. And he's very cynical. He doesn't want to be there. He wants to escape. He wants to leave. And as he starts to see the other characters change and evolve and accept their surroundings and their circumstances, rails against it more and wants to break free from it. And he's determined to leave, no matter what the cost. Ultimately, there's a young woman there who wants to escape. And he sort of takes her with her, but they say that if she leaves the wall, she will age. She came there in 1888 and had lived there ever since, but it keeps them young when they live there than when they step out. And if they step out straight away, they become old, and they sort of give her that warning. And George really starts to cause a lot of issues within the Shangri-La. By some information he provides, he convinces his brother to go along with him. So him and Robert set off on this journey. And everything that they've been told happens. And it ultimately turns into Robert trying to get back to Shangri-La after all this has transpired. I think it has a good message and a lot of heart, this film. And it talks about being present and being happy with what you have and stop trying to strive and get everything else that you need. I think the story in this film in many ways is very relevant to what's going on now. I certainly feel that. The idea of not relying on things, becoming self-sufficient. Have your own little Shangri-La, as they say in the film. A place you can go that's yours, that you can craft into what you want, that you can be happy with, that you can be happy there. And I think that really connected with me, and I think in that way it makes this film really important. I love all the miniature work that's done. There's some really great sequences where the plane's flying to the air and then crashes. It's all models with model mountains and stuff like that. And even when you see Shangri-La, it's a model as well, and so well done and so clever. And they're very inventive, especially in the 30s with this sort of stuff. But what makes you glued to this film is the story and Frank Capra's direction and the performances that he gets out of his actors and the stories he wants to tell. He has a lot of heart to his stories. They're very relevant and real. They're about real people, and it's really about people being conflicted with what they feel and believe and trying to make sense of the world that they live in. And I think this film really encapsulates that. This is definitely my type of film, and I thoroughly enjoyed my experience with it. I thought it was brilliantly done. Final thoughts. Like I've been saying, at the heart, this film is really about finding your purpose, finding your place in the world, finding something that works for you, finding something that makes you feel normal and fulfilled and happy. It doesn't have to be part of anything else that's happening in the world. It could be your own little design of what you want and the life you want to live and how you want to live throughout the rest of your life. And that how sometimes we're conflicted with this. That even when we get it, we feel we need more or something different, or we don't know if this is really what we want. This film's really about accepting what's happening and being happy with what you're learning and not losing faith when things start to fall apart or the ground beneath your feet starts to shake, but being cemented in what you feel and believe. I'm going to give Lost Horizon 4.5 out of 5. I thought this film was fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed my experience with it. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit subscribe in the bottom. Follow me on Facebook or Twitter. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.